families of those who lost their loved ones. It was a terrible tragedy. What are some of the things that come to your mind after you go through this report as a pilot, somebody who understands the aviation industry very closely? Sir, you're on mute, sir.
Hi, sorry about it. I've been going through the report which has been published by the government, and the AAIB report, and we were all eagerly waiting for it. And it's been within a month, it was submitted to the people, to the nation, and thanks to the government and the agency which worked to see that it is published. Now, there are a few facts in this which have been mentioned in the report. And we have seen that the aircraft does take off. It has been put in the report. It achieves a speed of 118 knots. It has been put in the report. And thereafter, something happens. And that is what is most intriguing. Thereafter, there is an action initiated by the aircraft in emergency, which is done by the aircraft on its own, which happens only when both the engines, in particular in Boeing's, happen, and in particular in Dreamliner, which has happened. The RAT has deployed, which is a equipment for hydraulics and electrical, and the APU, which is the auxiliary power unit, which is switched off before takeoff, starts operations. Like it starts, it moves on. Now, when these two things happen, it only happens when both the engines stall or they shut off. And this is, if this single engine would have happened, these two things would not have deployed, which actually did. So the report categorically states that the engine did stall, or the engine did switch off. The spool, it came spooled down, or it lost power. So that's a fact. Then there is a mention in the report about the lever switch, which is the ignition switch, being relit in a particular period of time. And it's also been indicated that after a particular period of time, the action of a captain putting back that switch from cutoff to on, or cutoff to on, has been performed, and the engine has gained power. Now, in the report, one thing is significantly not been mentioned, but that how did the aircraft close or shut down? So that thing has not been mentioned. It has been left open. So as per this report, it has not apportioned the blame on the captain or the airlines or Air India, or for that matter, Boeing. It has not said anything. It's just given evidence of the things which have happened inside the aircraft and the things which time-wise, what were the actions taken. So this is something very intriguing. And we still have to wait to find out what AAIB says, who is responsible for it. It has not been spoken.
Mr. Rudy, what caused the fuel switches to move? Because in a matter of 1 second, they tried to move it up and down. They tried to bring the engine back to life. With your experience, your flying experience, and whatever you may have heard from experts, and through your understanding, what do you think could have caused these switches to move?
So in this very report, there's something mentioned about an FAA report in 2018, which has said that the fuel switch does not have a lock-in system. It is mentioned in one of the reports, and this was an advisory, but no action was taken. So this is one report which has been mentioned in this report, that the lock-in mechanism does not exist in this kind of switches. So this is a part of the report which has also been given in this report. The second aspect which comes is, for this, what I have learned from the senior captains of 787 Dreamliners, that in case of an engine shutdown, the process of relighting the engine is switching off the fuel control switch and switching it on. And when this process happens, the FedEx or the computer communicates it to the engine, and the relevant fuel injection and the start procedure is initiated. So it only happens when you switch it off and you switch it on. Possibly there is a gap which does not mention at what point of time the previous switching off had taken place, because there is no mention in the report. So in absence of these finer details, it is very difficult to say what could be the possible. There is also one report across the world which says that in millions of cases, one action can happen, and that is the FedEx failure, which is an electronic failure, which is a computer failure. So that has also been discussed. Unless and until AAIB comes back and says, this has happened, and this is the reason why it has happened. It has said that the engines have shut down, but it has not.
So, Mr. Rudy, would you say that this preliminary report actually does not indicate the cause of the engine shutdown?
Yes. If you look closely, it talks about everything, but it doesn't talk why. Which action resulted in the engine shutdown has not been explained. So there is an option 1 there's an option B there, option C there. You keep on trying to figure it out. And that is why these conversations are going on, right. That captain could be responsible, or B could be responsible, or FedEx failure could be there, or the locking device did not activate. So all these are there because the AAIB has not concluded that which action resulted in the shutdown of engines. So we are
do you feel, Mr. Rudy, that in the present form, we're actually being unfair to the pilots who lost their lives? You know, they were highly trained pilots, very experienced, who did their best at that time.
Mr. Sabharwal had good 8,500 hours. The young boy also had about 1,000 hours plus. And you see that when you are flying a plane, and especially a commercial one, and there's nothing called a co-pilot or a junior pilot. Both the capabilities of both the pilots as far as flying the plane is concerned is more or less the same. And it is the seniority or the experience which is there with the commander who is cleared to be in command after clearing certain examinations, certain professional requirements. So I think both were good enough. And this time the pilot flying was the first officer and the pilot monitoring was the commander. So he was very much hands-on to whatever was being displayed on the screen, the engine performance, the roll, the speed, the checks, the rotation speed, and possibly there is some communication in between about the switches being put to off. Now, all that is all awareness. And I would feel that the commander, and I believe it is the commander, had the presence of mind to relight the engine, which in case of a 787 Dreamliner is the process which is a memory item. We don't have anything written. It's memorized that if both the engines fail, immediately switch it off and switch it on.
Do you feel, Mr. Rudy, it's now very important, considering that you've put out in the accident report that there was a conversation between pilots. One of them said, why did you shut down the fuel? The other said, I have not done this. This is not conclusive. This is not conclusive. Exactly. Do you feel that more details should be put out?
Even one doesn't know who. I think they should have put it in the report. The commander who was a pilot monitoring said this, or the first officer who was a pilot flying said this. None of them said this. So it's not been indicated in the report actually who said this. And that should have come. And the time when it was said is also not been indicated in the report. So all these things become critical as you can see, the levers which are being pushed up. So, and when you are taking off, you don't look at this because it is assumed that it is going to remain in that position. So you have to stretch it. I have not operated these flights. I've used, and this is the process by which you ignite the engines. In case of a Airbus, you put engine 1 on, you put the ignition on, and they put engine 1 on and engine 2 on. But here it's a different kind of a switch which starts the engine. So let us see. Let us see how it works out. So, but I would refrain, and I think everyone should refrain from pointing a finger to the captain or maybe X or maybe Y till the time a factual report comes.
You're absolutely right, sir, because clearly there was something that went wrong, and we need to get to the bottom of it. What is the kind of questions you think the government must be asking of the airline, of Boeing, of GE, so that this doesn't happen in future? And at least from this investigation, what do you expect now should actually come out so that, you know, someone is held accountable?
I will not speculate anything. I would not speculate anything. I will not conjure anything. And I feel very slightly upset when I find people in isolation picking up situations. The the facts are there with the AIB, and there are other regulatory agencies across the world who may be cross-checking, because it's not at this point of time there would be more than 800 787 Dreamliners in air, with thousands of passengers. So we cannot make a speculation that this should have been done. Of course, there are a lot of freelancers who come and speak, but we should refrain from giving a reason unless until. And I think it would be in the interest of the airlines and aviation per se, that as early as we come to know where was the fault, things could be, people would feel happy about it.
Right. And I'm assuming, sir, it'll take at least 2 years for us to get the full report?
I am not the authority to speak on that. I'm really not the authority to speak on that. And I wish it could be earlier. But there exist certain gaps in the preliminary report, which possibly could get addressed in future, Parikshit.
We hope so too, sir. Thank you so much for joining us with your responses, your views on the terrible tragedy and the preliminary report and the gaps also that you pointed out. That's all we have time for here on News Centre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.